Hi everyone, welcome to the very first episode of Friday Farsight. I'm your host Sheldon Pacody, and today's topic is domestic robots. But first, a few words about the concept behind this podcast. The idea is to take some of the content from a website called Strategic Farsight and turn it into a more consumable, entertaining form. So that's what this is. Strategic Farsight is a publicly accessible timeline of the future where anybody can go and ask a question and get a prediction that shows up on a timeline or a trend. And there are also tools there to do scenario planning. So the idea is to take some of the more interesting pieces of content that come out of that site and turn them into podcasts. And essentially, that's going to be a whole AI-driven process. The website builds these predictions with AI, and then we take those and generate a script with AI, and then have AI hosts voice the script. Now, of course, this is a good point to insert the disclaimer that I think each of these podcasts will have, which is that this is a prediction of the future generated by a machine, and so we can only trust it so far. And in fact, some of the individual bits of content and references may not be exactly right. I do my best to try to make sure that the content is solid, but I may not catch every footnote and everything, so take everything with a grain of salt. I find it very useful just as a way to probe the future. I kind of think of this site, I've been working on it for about a year now. It's kind of like a video game where you walk around with and a map you're discovering, and the map fills in. It's all dark, but then it fills in bit by bit as you go and discover things. And that's kind of how it's been for me working with the site. I feel like my understanding of the future has grown by leaps and bounds. And I've actually come out with a somewhat positive view of where we may end up, believe it or not, even though we will have a number of negative predictions that we'll be going through in this series. But with that, that's the concept of the podcast. Today's topic is domestic robots. I will tend not to say a whole lot about the topics at the beginning because we have a full presentation coming with our AI hosts. But I'll usually say a word or two. And the one thing I want to say about domestic robots is I think, with all the predictions out there and prototypes that are being built and products, I think the one thing that isn't being thought about is the second order effects that will happen once we do have fully capable domestic robots. So in particular, you'll see, you hear in the podcast that they'll reference a benchmark that's pretty popular, which is putting dishes into a dishwasher. I think Samsung made a robot that did that a while back. There was a recent robot that was doing that as part of their demo, and all the talk show hosts on the late night shows made fun of it. And it turned out it was even funnier because it was being piloted by a human being in another room remotely, and it still had trouble just putting dishes in the dishwasher. So that's fine as a benchmark, and you'd expect a fully capable domestic servant to be able to do that. But I think that the challenge I want to give everybody is imagine once we have these universal labor devices in our home, will we need all this industrial equipment that we've built over the last century? So dishwasher in particular, I've rented places that didn't have a dishwasher and had to wash dishes by hand for periods of time. It's not that hard. You rub some soap on it and you put it in the drying rack and you put it up. A domestic robot could do that instantly as soon as dishes become dirty and would know exactly when they're dry and ready to be put up and could keep that whole process going. Why would you have a whole box, of metal with all this machinery just to spray water around when you could just have the robot do it? Same thing could be said for garage door openers. Seems like those things are always breaking, right? The robot could just know when your car is approaching the house, walk out, open the door, shut it again. Sprinkler systems is another thing on my mind. I just moved into a new place, and the grounds need work. They're dry. It's a dry climate. We kind of need a sprinkler system. But those things, there's just a whole bunch of mechanics underground. Another thing that can break. I have a relative who had a pipe leak for multiple years potentially and ruined the foundation and cost tens of thousands of dollars. So again, why all this industrial age machinery when you could just have a labor device, a universal labor device, go out there with a hose every now and then and water when it's supposed to. So anyway, that's the provocation I'll throw out there before we get into really the meat of when is this stuff going to happen. That will be the job of our AI hosts, Biff and Betty. All right, guys, take it away.
Already? That's all you're going to say?
Yeah, that's the idea. I tee it up and you guys go over the prediction article.
So we do the work and you get the glory.
Well, I don't really think of it that way.
What about music?
Yeah, a walk-up song.
I don't know, guys. We already have the intro theme. Let's just get into it.
Okay. Always happy to ease the burden of biological brains. What you got, Biff?
Right. Wow, imagine this. It's the year 2042, give or take a few years, and you walk into your kitchen and there it is. A fully capable robotic servant. And I mean capable. It can do just about anything.
That's right, Biff. We're not talking about just a Roomba here, which, we have now. This week on Friday Farsight, for our debut episode, we're diving deep into Strategic Farsight's prediction that by 2042, these robots won't just vacuum, they'll be cooking your meals from raw ingredients, loading your dishwasher, and even assembling your flat pack furniture. It's pretty wild.
Furniture assembly? That alone makes it worth it, honestly. But my first thought is always, how in the world do we get there? I mean, we've got robots that can, dance and do parkour, but they're still not, folding my laundry.
Well, that's exactly what the Strategic Farsight article digs into. It points out that while the journey to these home robots has been going on for decades, the progress has been, well, varied. Boston Dynamics, for example, they've got Atlas, which can run and jump and do basic manipulation. Impressive, absolutely. But as Sam Safadi, a robotics engineer at Boston Dynamics, noted in 2022, there is a huge gap between controlled demonstrations and reliable in-home performance.
Yeah, like those videos you see, where the robot flawlessly pours a drink in a lab. Then you imagine it in your messy kitchen trying to find the right glass, and you just think, ugh, no way.
Exactly. And then there's Tesla's Optimus. It showed basic mobility and simple manipulation back in 2022. Elon Musk, ever the optimist, projected useful humanoid robots in 3 to 5 years. But as we've seen, his predictions can sometimes be, ambitious.
Sure, but he's not so much predicting as pitching, right? First, amp up the excitement, then, get there. Maybe not immediately, maybe not in a straight line.
Well, what's interesting is that today's specialized robots are getting there. Incrementally, they have actually done really well, like your Roomba. That's a single-task success story. Samsung's Bot Handy, demonstrated at CES 2021, looked promising for specific things like loading dishwashers, but it's not really widely deployed. The core issue, it seems, comes down to a few major technical hurdles.
All right, let's take this thing apart.
Okay, so first up, dexterity and manipulation. Dr. Ken Goldberg, director of the Auto Lab at UC Berkeley, highlighted this in his 2023 paper, Grasping in the Wild. He said that even simple tasks like folding laundry or handling fragile dishes require levels of dexterity that current robots just can't reliably achieve outside of lab settings. It won't be until about 2040 that robots display robust generalized manipulation at the level of a human child, with adult-level dexterity following 5 to 7 years later.
That's a long ramp. Wow, so it's not just about, grabbing a can. It's about how you crack an egg or fold a really tricky fitted sheet. That's like next-level wizardry for a robot.
It absolutely is. Then there's artificial general intelligence and common sense. Narrow AI has progressed super fast, but common sense? Knowing not to vacuum a wet floor, recognizing when food is burning, that's still a huge challenge. Dr. Owen Etzioni from the Allen Institute for AI believes robots with the contextual understanding needed for autonomous household management will require significant advances in both embodied AI and common sense reasoning, putting truly capable systems into the 2040 to 2050 timeframe.
It's that more of X paradox thing, isn't it? Where the hard stuff for us, like chess, is easy for computers, but the easy stuff, like picking up a pen, is incredibly hard.
Precisely, Biff. It's exactly Moravac's paradox. And that brings us to safety and trust. Dr. Kate Darling of the MIT Media Lab stresses that technical capability is only half the equation. These robots also need to overcome significant barriers in safety perception, trust, and social acceptance. Her 2021 survey found that 68% of respondents were concerned about safety with general-purpose home robots. Regulatory frameworks are still developing, with ISO standards expected in the late 2020s.
I mean, if it's going to be like carrying my toddler, I need to know it's not going to decide it's time to clean the pool.
Right? And finally, there are the industry and market forces. Mass producing these things economically is a big challenge. Current research prototypes for dexterous robotic systems often cost over $100,000. But as Mark Palatucci, co-founder of Anki Robotics, suggests, the cost curve for advanced robotics will likely follow computing, capabilities doubling every 18 months while costs halve. This could make them economically viable for upper-middle-class households by the early 2040s.
So like that old adage about Moore's Law for chips, but for robot limbs, which means by the time we get to the $6 million man, he'll be worth about $600. And he'll be lined up by the vacuums at Target trying to catch our eye with a juggling trick.
Maybe. Now, the Strategic Farsight article also lays out a convergence timeline, which shows the path we're likely to take. So 2025 to 2030, we'll see advanced single-task robots. Think super smart vacuums or specialized cleaning bots.
Okay, so incremental improvements, nothing too mind-blowing yet.
Then, 2030 to 2035, limited multitask robots, like kitchen assistants that can load dishwashers and do basic food prep. A step up, you know? Moving into 2035 to 2040, we're talking about more versatile robots capable of handling tasks across multiple domains, but they'll still need significant human oversight. And finally, 2040 to 2049, the first truly general-purpose home robots, capable of most household tasks with minimal supervision.
That aligns with what the Japan Robotic Association and the European Robotics Research Network have been projecting too, which is reassuring, but I always come back to the skeptics, Dr. Rodney Brooks, the robotics pioneer. He argues that the idea of a single general-purpose robot might be misguided. He thinks we're more likely to see an ecosystem of specialized robots first, pushing truly general-purpose systems into the 2050s or beyond.
He definitely represents a valid counterpoint, and current market trends sort of back him up. iRobot has done well with single-purpose designs, while they've struggled with multi-purpose extensions. The article also points out why earlier, more optimistic predictions, like Elon Musk's, tend to fall short. It's about integration challenges, getting vision, manipulation, and mobility to work seamlessly together. And then there's reliability. Home environments demand over 99.9% reliability for many tasks, far beyond current research systems.
Yeah, I mean, if once a month this wonder of technology walks through my sliding glass door, that's not helpful. Which makes me think about the safety certification. It'll have to cover every crazy thing that could happen, right? There'll be like a whole bureaucracy of robot approvals.
For sure, extended testing periods will be necessary for regulatory approval, especially for systems operating around humans. But here's the kicker. The article also explores why later predictions, say 2060 or beyond, might be too conservative.
All right, hit me. I want to live to see these things.
One source of optimism is the acceleration of AI capabilities. Recent breakthroughs in multimodal AI suggest faster than expected progress in task understanding and planning. Also, advancements in transfer learning mean robots are increasingly able to learn from simulation and transfer those skills to real-world settings.
So like they train in the metaverse, then spend the rest of their lives in my kitchen, so I can spend the rest of my life in the metaverse.
Essentially, and that isn't the only accelerator. Don't forget commercial competition. Major players like Tesla, Boston Dynamics, Amazon, Google, they're investing heavily. That creates competitive pressure, which often speeds up development. Plus, there's growing consumer demand, especially from aging populations in developed countries, creating a strong market pull for assistive technologies.
That's a good point. Nobody wants to change their own sheets when they're 90.
So what's the synthesized prediction then after all this back and forth? The final word from Strategic Farsight.
Weighing all these factors, the most reasonable prediction places fully capable home robotic servants becoming commercially available by 2042, plus or minus 7 years. Initially, they'll be expensive, luxury items, accessible primarily to upper-middle-class households. Think of how personal computers were adopted. Mass-market affordability would follow 5 to 10 years later.
So it's not like everyone gets one right away. It's more of a slow rollout. But still, the impact. Do we suddenly become obsolete in our own homes? What do we do with ourselves?
We're looking at a significant shift in daily life, Beth. These first systems will likely have humanoid forms because, our environments are designed for humans.
They replace us, is what you're saying.
Well, they live and work alongside us. They become part of our lives.
Okay. They sleep on the couch and do the chores, just like my cousin Roy. Got it.
Sort of. What this means is time, leisure. It changes what it feels like just to go through the day.
It would have to be like being royalty, I guess. My all-in-one chef, butler, maid, gardener, and me, the king.
Sure, but without the kingdom, right? Without the pyramid of human labor that has up to now supported the leisure class.
Boom! We blow up the whole social order just like that.
Maybe not the whole system, but the societal changes could be profound. I mean, the very nature of work, it could be completely redefined.
Yeah, imagine not having to do a single chore ever again, like changing a light bulb, getting the spackle off the walls of the microwave, giving the dog a bath.
Think bigger, Biff. It could go way beyond traditional housework. Remember, these systems, just like today's AI models, will have access to every kind of expert knowledge. They could change the oil in your car, repair almost anything, maybe even administer first aid and perform initial medical exams.
You mean no more paying $200 to have a plumber look at a leak? Is it too early to pre-order?
Like I said, the very concept of work, of meaningful work for humans, will utterly transform once robots cross this threshold.
In other words, conquer the sheet folding problem, and suddenly we have 1,000 expert tradespeople on staff in our homes.
Probably for a subscription, but yes, as Dr. Daniela Russ, director of MIT's Computer Science and Artificial Intelligence Laboratory, put it in her 2022 analysis, the question is not if, but when general-purpose household robots will arrive. She emphasized that while technology is advancing rapidly across multiple fronts, integrating it into a reliable, affordable, and trustworthy system for everyday use likely places the horizon in the 2040s. And that's really what Strategic Farsight is highlighting.
It's a future that can't get here soon enough, if you ask me. Though I still think I'll want to keep my job. But maybe it's the same at work as at home, right? The robots do the chores, the tedious stuff that eats up time, while we do the thinking, or the planning, or at least the deciding what gets done, the meaningful stuff.
I guess that's something we'll be figuring out for years to come. Maybe a good topic for a future episode.
Yeah, totally. Does this show have a suggestion box?
There's a Discord server.
Oh, right.
And with that, we've come to the end of our first deep dive into the future on Friday Farsight.
Thanks so much for listening, everyone.
And remember, you can go to the Strategic Farsight website to read the full prediction article and explore many more fascinating insights into what tomorrow holds. We'll catch you next week.
Hey, there's the music.